Chapter 48 of the Plum and the Golden Vase. Chongzhen version of the embroidered portrait. Playing an affair and giving a peach as a gift. Taking shortcuts to explore 7 things. The word says, under the peach blossoms, the purple flute is played. Suddenly I was a little frightened, but I cared about that person and shed tears to the east wind. The east wind sheds tears, and I don't realize that I am secretly touched by Lopa, and my hatred is as great as the sky. Since the enemy is gone without mercy, why look back? It is said that In Tong took the letter, resigned from Huangtongban, and came straight to Shandong Avenue. I found out that the patrol censor lived in Dongchang Mansion. His surname was Zheng and his double name was Xiaoshu. He was the son of Zheng Bu, the censor of the capital. He was a Jinshi in Yiwike in Xinjiang and was an extremely upright official. And Tong thought to himself, if I say that I wrote the letter, the person at the door will never let it go. Why don't I wait until the notice board comes out, and I will kneel at the door and submit it with the book. Dad will definitely make a decision when he sees it. So he wrote down the complaint early, carried it in his arms, and waited for a long time at the gate of the procuratorate. Hearing the sound of the cloud board beating inside, the door opened and Yushi Zhang sat in the hall. When the first card comes out, the big book tells the prince, the royal family, the consort, and the powerful family. When the second card comes out, it tells the officials of the capital, Bu, Ji, and military guards. When the third card comes out, it is about the marriages of the common people, the land, and the lawsuits, things, and Tong followed the sign and went in. After all the necessary matters were distributed, he walked to Danke and knelt down. Both sides asked what he was doing, and Tong just raised the book with both hands and presented it to him. I just heard Yushi Zhang shouting from the public seat, "Pick it up!" The panicked officials came down, picked up the book, and placed it on the desk. Zheng Gong opened it and looked at it. What words were written on it? The book says, Huang Wansu, a student in Xiadu, Shufeng, Das Hushi shouting, a disciple of Mr. Zheng Nian, a disciple of his brother, violated the light and rituals for a short period of time. It's hard to find a good friend, but it's easy to get lost when traveling. This heart is always at your side. In the autumn, I suddenly reported Yao Zhang, opened the scroll and opened the letter, and while reciting it, my mind wandered in a trance, just like when I was opposite Chang'an. Not long after, Brother Nian came to visit Nangshuan and heard the news of Di. He was very pleased to know that Brother Nian was visiting Kilu. Kowtow to congratulate. Wei Nian's brother's loyalty and filial piety. His chastity in the wind and frost, sharpened his heart, worked hard in the Lang Miao, and lived in scholarly discussions. Today I am out on patrol. It is the right day to remove the official evil hair and correct the moral conduct. I only love and miss you, but I cannot forget you. I say that Brother Nian usually holds a weapon that can be used. In the year of success, in the age of saints and wise men, when the old man is healthy at home, he should take advantage of this to display his talents to promote the law and discipline, and not to let the officials who dance with literature use it. Frustrate the law, and the stubborn people will succeed in their deception. Hunai is like a government in Dongbing, but there are people who scoff at Dafa like Mao King, and people who hold great grievances like Mao Tiangshu. Unexpectedly, in a world of sage and enlightenment, such monsters would exist. Brother Nian visited this place, and it was time to sort out the grievances and stagnation, so that he could clear them up. I went to accompany Tong and told him with a written statement. Fortunately, I inspected him and kept silent. Looking forward to the next day in mid-spring, after Zhang Yushi had finished reading the book, he asked, "Do you have a petition?" Zuo hurriedly came down and asked, "Master, I want to ask you if you have a petition." And Tong took the petition from his arms and handed it over. Zheng Gong read it and took out a pen to write. "I admire the official of Dongbing Mansion. I will find out from you, examine the body of the Prime Minister, and report it in detail." He ordered Tong to serve in Dongbing Mansion, and Tong quickly kowtowed and was released from the toilet door. Here Zheng Gong put the comments in an envelope, sealed the pass, and sent someone to deliver it to Dongbing Mansion. When Hu Shiwen, the prefectural governor, saw the approval from his superiors, he was so panicked that he transferred the commission to the county magistrate de Sibin of Yangwu County. He was originally from Wuyang, Henan. Biadi Hun. First, The Prime Minister of De County was passing by the West River of King County. Suddenly he saw a whirlwind in front of the horse's head. The group did not disperse, but followed De Gong's horse. The Prime Minister of De County said, "That's strange." He reined in his horse and ordered the gentleman on his left and right, "If you follow this whirlwind, be sure to follow it and find its whereabouts." The gentleman really followed the whirlwind and came near the mouth of Shin River. Then he stopped and walked back to answer Mr. Dai's words. De Gong immediately detained the old man and Gigi and used a shovel to dig a few feet from the shore. He saw a dead body, as if there was a knife mark on the neck. He was ordered to inspect and understand, and asked where it was in front of him. The official reported, "Not far from here is Chihui Temple." The county magistrate asked the monks in the Ku Temple, and they all said, "Last winter in the middle of October, when the temple was putting out water lanterns, we saw a dead body coming from the upper stream. He drifted into the harbor. The elder was compassionate and buried him. I don't know why he died." The county magistrate said, "It is clear that you monks murdered him and buried him here." So he refused to tell the truth. Without any explanation, the elder was first beaten with 1 hoop, 2 with 1 hoop, and 1 with 100 knocks. The rest of the monks, who also had 20 sticks, were all ordered to be imprisoned. Report to Mr. Zheng and check again. All the monks complained that they were wronged and refused to accept it. Zheng Gong thought, since this monk is seeking death, his body will be abandoned in the river. How can it be buried on the bank instead? It is also suspicious that he is disturbing people. Therefore, he ordered all the monks to be imprisoned. It has been nearly 2 months since Intong came to complain. Immediately, the commissioner was ordered to escort Intong to the corpse place and make him look at it. When Intong saw the corpse, he cried loudly, "It is my master who was injured by the thief, and the knife marks are still there." So he checked and found out, reported to Zheng Gong, and released the monks. While checking the files, Chen San and Wang Bao were interrogated again, and both insisted that Mao King was the mastermind. Zheng Gong was furious and sent people to go to Yangzhou to pick up Mao King at Starry Night. On the other hand, he wrote a book to impeach to members of the criminal court and asked them about the law of selling stolen goods. Exactly, those who corrupted officials and abused the country were punished, and Zheng Gong was sentenced to clear up the injustice. Although Feng Ting is commanded to be solemn, winning or losing in a dream never comes true. The words were divided into 2 parts, but he said that ever since Wang Liwer got the 100 taels of silver, and for sets of clothes from director Mao King, he and his man Han Daoguo had been busy day and night, thinking about how to fix hairpins and hairpins, call a tailor to cut your clothes, and wear a new silver bun. With 16 taels of silver, he bought another girl, named Chongzhen, to be used as a servant. Sooner or later, he would teach Han Daoguo how to use her. One day, Simon King went to the country of Han Dao, and Wang Liwer followed him. After having tea inside, Simon King went to the back to wash his hands. He saw the platform next door and asked, "Whose platform is it?" Wang Liwer said, "It's the Lei Sanjia platform next door." Simon King asked Wang Liwer, "How? Teach him to cover up the feng shui here. Tell him, if you don't agree with me, I will tell him." Wang Liwer said to Han Daoguo, "How can I tell him about this?" Daoguo said, "Why don't we hide it from Dad and buy some wooden plants? Let's also build a platform here. It's good to dry the sauce on the top and make a horse shop below. It's also a good thing." The wife said, "Bah, the thief has no idea. Rather than building a platform, why not buy some bricks and tiles instead of building to buildings?" Han Daoguo said, "To build to buildings. It is better to build to small rooms on the first floor. Let's have a house." So he spent 30 taels of silver and built 2 more bungalows. Simon King sent Daener to bring a lot of wine, meat, and sesame cakes to reward the craftsmen with his family. No one knows about that street. Jia Tixing got a few hundred taels of silver to stay at home, and sent his son Jia Cheng'an, who was 18 years old, to study martial arts and become a student. Invite teachers and friends every day to learn bow and horse. Simon King dated Liu Zhu, the second internal minister, Zhou Xiaobai, Jingdu supervisor, Zhang Tunlian, and Huey officials. It is unnecessary to go into details about Simon King's favors and hanging scrolls with him to celebrate. Simon King Yan has built a new shanty rolling shed house on the tomb. since he gave birth to his brother Guan and raised 1,000 households. He has not yet paid homage to his ancestors on the tomb. I asked Mr. Zhu of Yin and Yang to look at it, and he built a new tomb gate and built a sacred road to the Mingtang. Beech willows were planted at the head of the gate, pines and cypresses were planted around it, and the two sides overlapped to form slopes. When visiting the grave on King Ming Day, one needs to change the brocade clothes and plaques, slaughter pigs and sheep, and set the table. On the King Ming festival, the 6th day of March, invitations were sent out in advance, and many people were invited, carrying things, wine and rice, food, vegetables, and calling for musicians, jugglers, and performers. The young actors are Li Ming, Wu Hua, Wang Shu, and Zheng Feng. The singers are Li Guiji, Wu Yin'er, Han Jinchuan, and Dong Jiar. The official guests invited Zhang Tuanlian, Qiao Dahu, Uncle Wu, Second Uncle Wu, Uncle Hua, Uncle Shen, Earl Ying, Si Zaida, Fu Biangguo, Han Daoguo, Yun Lizhou, Ben Dechuan and his son-in-law Chen Jingji, etc., and made an appointment. More than 20 people. The guests invited Mrs. Zhang Tuanlian, Mrs. Zhang's mother, Mrs. Qiao Dahu, Mrs. Zhu Taiguan, Mrs. Shang Jiren, Wu De Jinzi, Jinzi, Miss Yang, Grandma Pan, Hua De Jinzi, Aunt Wu, Aunt Meng, and Wu Shenshen's daughter-in-law Zheng Sanji, Zhui Ben's wife, Sister Duan, and at home Wu Yunyang, Li Jier, Meng Yulu, Pan Jinlian, Li Pinger, Sun Zui, Sister Ximen, Chun Mai, Ying Chun, Yu Xiao, Lang Sheng, and Nazi Ryer were holding Guanjir. There are also 24 or 5 sedan chairs inside and outside. First, Yunyang said to Ximen King, "There is no need to teach the first. It has not been a week," and Mrs. Liu said that the child's gait is not full yet, and he is timid. Now that he has arrived at the grave, it's a long way to go, so I'm afraid I won't teach him to go. I'll leave Nazi and Lao Feng at home to keep him company, and I'll just teach his mother and son to go alone. Ximen King didn't listen and said, "Why are you here? Why don't you to go kowtow to your ancestors in front of the grave? Do you believe the old whore's nonsense?" The child is still under the age of 10, and the mother-in-law is wrapped in a quilt in the sedan chair. The child is pressed firmly. "What are you afraid of?" The moon girl said. "If you don't listen, it's up to you." From early morning, all the guests gathered from home and got up on the sedan chair without saying anything. Go out of the south gate and go to the ancestral tomb 5 miles away. From a distance, you can see the lush green pines and green cypresses, chiseled from white jade. Shinan's plaque on the door of the tomb reads, "The first tomb of Jin Yi Wu Lu General Ximen." The front of the tomb is surrounded by mountains and trees. Ximen King wore a red crown and belt, and set up a table with pigs and goats as sacrifices. After the officials and guests have finished offering sacrifices, the guests of the hall can only offer sacrifices. The gongs and drums were played together. The officer was so frightened that he slumped down in the breast's arms, gasping for breath and not daring to move. Yunyang then shouted, "Sister Li, why don't you teach me how to carry the baby and carry the baby to the back? You look so bluffing to come. You are such a strong person. Just teach me how to carry him. Look at that kid." Li Pinger hurriedly came down and told Dan, "Stop the gong." He quickly covered the kid's ears and hugged him back. After a while, the sacrifice was completed. Mr. Zhu read the memorial text and burned the paper. Ximen King invited the official guests to sit in front of him. Yunyang invites the guests to stay in the rolling shed at the back and enter through the garden. There are pine walls and bamboo pots on both sides, and the surrounding flowers and plants are as far as the eye can see. Exactly, the pink willows and green orioles are all made by Dongjin. At the moment, the performer was performing in the booth for the guests to watch, and for little actors were playing and singing in front of the official guests' table. In the front hall, the 4 singers took turns passing the wine. Chun Mai, Yu Xiao, Lang Sheng and Ying Chun were all holding jugs and they stood at the head of the eldest sister's table and ate soup, rice, and snacks together. After eating for a while, Pan Jinlian went to the garden to play on the swing with Yulu, eldest sister, Sister Li Gui, and Wu Yin'er. It turned out that behind the rolling shed, Simon King had tittied up 3 rooms, 1 bright and 2 dark. Inside, bed tents, tables, chairs, comb cages, mirrors, dressing tables, etc. are arranged to prepare guests to come to the grave and dress up and rest here. It is as clean as a snow cave, with hanging calligraphy and painting, playing music and playing chess and playing elegantly. Nanny Ryer, the caretaker brother, was sleeping on a small mattress on the bed sprinkled with gold, and Yingxun was playing with him next to him. I saw Pan Jinlian suddenly walking from the garden alone, holding a sprig of peach blossoms in her hand. When she saw Yingxun, she said, "It turns out you weren't here to serve me that day." Yingxun said, "There are spring plums, orchids, and jade flutes above. My mother asked me to come down to see my brother, so she brought 2 plates of snacks for Ryer to eat." When my grandma saw Jin Liang coming, she picked up Brother Guan. Jin Liang teased him and said, "You little greasy mouth. You can see gongs and drums playing in your head, and you can't stop talking. It turns out that you are such a coward." Then he untied the lotus root silk coat, took the child and held it in his arms, kissing him mouth to mouth. Suddenly Chen Jingji opened the curtain and walked in. He saw Jin Liang playing with the child, so he also played with the child. Jin Liang said, "Little Taoist priest, you also want to kiss your brother-in-law." But suddenly, the official brother looked at him and smiled. Jingji couldn't help but hug the child over and kissed him several times. Jin Liang scolded, "It's so short-lived. Whoever kisses a child will mess up the person's mustache." Jingji said with a smile, "You also said that I was right to kiss you earlier." After Jin Liang heard this, "I'm afraid her breasts stink." He made a joke, turned the fan in his hand over the handle, and hit him, which made Jingji jump like a crucian carp. He scolded, "It's my fault that my life is short. Who can talk to you and other taunters?" Jingji said, "No, you old man should try to be more affectionate. If a person is wearing thin clothes, just beat him." Jin Liang said, "How do I cherish my love? From now on, if you mess with me, you'll just hit me." Seeing his naughty talk, Ryer quickly picked up Brother Guan and hugged him. While Jin Liang and Jingji were joking, Jin Liang made a circle with the peach blossom and quietly put it on Jingji's hat. When I walked out, Meng Yulu, the eldest sister, and Sister Gui were coming from the other side. When the eldest sister saw it, she asked, "Who does this for a living?" Jingji took it off without saying a word. In front of the guests, the opera performed for major changes. But see, the sunlight outside the window flickers by, and the shadows of flowers move among the seats in front of the banquet. Seeing that it was getting late, Simon King ordered Bai Si to disperse a bowl of wine, for sesame seed cakes, and a plate of cooked meat for each person carrying the sedan chair, and then get up the sedan chair for the guests. The officials mounted their horses behind them, while Lai Xing'er and the kitchen servant slowly carried the food boxes to the rear. Dan, Lion, Hua Tong, Chess Tunger and Yunyang were all in sedan chairs, and Qin Tong and 4 others lined up to follow Simon Kingma. Nanny Ryer sat alone in a small sedan, holding her brother in her arms and wrapping her tightly in quilt as she entered the city. Yunyang was still uneasy, so she sent Hui Hua Tunger to follow her in the sedan chair, for fear that people entering the city would cause chaos. When the Yunyang sedan entered the city, it separated from the sedans of the guests from the Kiao family. When they came home, they got off the sedan first and went in. It took half a day for Simon King and Chen Jingji to get off their horses at home. Pinganer came to the door and said, "Today I am going to punish Father Jia." He dismounted his horse and went to the hall to ask questions. After falling behind, he sent someone to ask twice. "I don't know what he is up to." After hearing this, Simon King felt in his heart hesitate. When I arrived at the hall, I saw a book boy picking up clothes. Simon King asked, "What message did your father Jia leave when you came today?" The boy said, "He didn't say it either. He just asked where father was going. Please come. I have something important to say." "I've been burning paper on the grave today," said the young man. "I won't come until late. I'll come back in the morning," he said. "It's not coming yet." Simon King thought to himself, "What is it?" Just as he was doubting, he saw the news coming. Dad Jia is here. It was already dusk, and I saw Jia Tixing in plain clothes and scarf, followed by the companions. He dismounted and went to the hall to recite the ceremony and said, "Sir, are you going to Baojuang today?" Simon King said, "Today I will pay tribute and sweep the tomb first. I didn't know that the commander was coming down and was not welcomed. Please forgive me." "Forgive me," Jia Tixing said. "I dare to come and report something to the chief." Yin said, "Let's go over there and sit in the guest seats." Simon King ordered the book boy to open the door of the shed and ask him to go there to speak. He ordered everyone on the left and right to go down. Jia Tixing said, "Now Mr. Li from the county came to the students and said that the Grand Patrol had recently sent a copy of the manuscript to Tokyo. Both the superior and the student were here to review the examples. The student asked someone to copy the manuscript here and read it with the superior." Simon King was shocked when he heard this. He hurriedly took the newspaper and looked at it under the lamp. What words were written on it? A book prefaced by Zhang Xiao, the censor of Shandong province, impeached corrupt military officers and begged for their removal, so as to set the record straight. The ministers heard that. Patrolling all over the country and inspecting customs were the emperor's patrols. Suppressing official evil and promoting law and order, it is the duty of the censor to correct political affairs. In the past, spring and autumn records that the King of Heaven patrolled for hunting, and all the nations were protected. The people's customs were harmonious. The king's way was clear, the four people were obedient, and the holy rule was clear. Since last year, I was ordered to inspect the state of Kilu in Shandong, and the year is about to expire. I have been able to find out whether the civil and military officials are worthy or not, which is quite true. At the end of my term, if you dare not follow the routine screening process, please report it to Your Majesty. In addition to participating in the impeachment of officials from the department, there are also special petitions, referring to Jia Yanling, who was in charge of the punishment of Jinwu Weizheng Qianhu in Shandong Tixing office. You has a velvety talent, greedy and despicable behavior, and has been in the discussion for a long time, and has a tainted class behavior. In the past, when he was a pastor of the imperial bureaucracy, he wreaked havoc on the government and was exploited by subordinate officials for their own purposes. Nowadays, the provincial administration of prisons in Shandong is full of greed and is suppressed by colleagues. Zhang Zicheng pretended to be a member of the martial arts examination, and the Qianren took the examination on his behalf, and the scholarly conduct was completely ruined. Jia Shu, a member of Shin family, asked for money from his class, but he was expelled by the army and his political affairs were unknown. If you receive things, you will be a servile person, and people at that time would call her a maid. If you ask questions, you will be indifferent, and the people in the group will criticize you like a puppet. Simon King, Deputy General of Qianhu, was originally a gangster in the market. He was promoted by chance and abused martial arts. He didn't know Shamai and didn't know anything. Letting wives and concubines roam the streets while the curtains are thin makes it unclear. Taking concubines with them to drink in the marketplace is a stain on the official motto. As for the wife who took care of the Han family, she indulged in pleasure and promiscuity without repairing her behavior. The money she received from Mao Qingyi was a cover-up, and the traces of the stolen goods were obvious. These two ministers are both greedy and despicable. They have been obedient for a long time and cannot hold office for a moment. Fu Wang Shengming listened and ordered the department to investigate further. If the minister's words are correct and the extension of life is urgently given and dismissed, then the official will always be able to rely on him and his holy virtue will last forever. Simon King read it again, looked at each other in shock and remained silent. Jia Tixing said, "Sir, how do you deal with this?" Simon King said, "As the saying goes, when the soldiers come, they will be blocked, and when the water comes, the soil will cover up. When things happen, it depends on people. You and I will prepare some gifts and send people to Tokyo Central as soon as possible. Let's go to the master." So Jia Tixing made a hasty speech and went home to take 200 taels of silver and 2 silver pots. Simon King has a piece of gold inlaid with jade and 300 taels of silver. The Jia family sent a member of their family, Jia Shu, and Simon King came here to ensure that the gifts were packaged properly. Simon King wrote a letter to Butler Zai, and the two of them had hired a boss early on. and went to Tokyo to work on a starry night, no matter what. Moreover, my cousin's son has only been crying at night since he came home from the grave and refused to nurse, but after eating milk, I vomited. Li Ping'er panicked and came to tell Yunyang. Yunyang said, I don't want to take my child who is not yet a week old out of the city gate. Zhuo Lihuo has no intention of life or death. And only said, today's grave, why are you here? Why don't you teach me to walk around? It's just like you're helping me. How can I do it now? Kwang Ximenxing was on patrol again, talking to Jia Tixing in the front, and went to Tokyo to do some work. He was not happy, and the children at home were not well. Yunyang asked her servant to call Mrs. Liu to come and see her. She also asked the pediatrician to open and close the door, which was chaotic all night. Mrs. Liu looked at it and said, Brother, I was a little frightened, and I bumped into the 5 generals on the road. It doesn't matter. Just buy some paper and send it back. She left a more cinnabar pills and used mint. After the rush soup was delivered, the child just slept peacefully and stopped crying and vomiting milk. But the fever hadn't subsided yet. So Li Ping'er quickly took out a couple of silver coins and taught Mrs. Liu to prepare paper. Later, he brought his husband and a master's wife, and they burned paper and danced in the scroll shed. Then Simon King sent Lai Bo and Jia Shu to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he and Jia Tixing went to Magistrate Hu of Dongbing Prefecture to inquire about Ti Mao King. When Wu Yunyang heard Mrs. Liu say that the child was frightened on the way, she complained very much to Ryer, saying, Don't pay attention to the child. He must have been frightened in the sedan chair on the way. Otherwise, why would it not be good? Ryer said, I wrapped the quilt tightly around him in the sedan chair and did not hold him. My mother asked Hua Tunger to follow the sedan chair. He was still fine, so I slept with him until he reached the house. First of all, I just felt that he had a shiver, stopped feeding when he got home, and started crying. Click here to burn paper at home and have fun with your children. Let's say that Lai Bo and Jia Shu traveled all the way and arrived in Tokyo in only 6 days. I went to the Teishi mansion and met with Butler Zai to clearly deliver the gifts from both families. Zai Jin read Simon King's letter and said, Zhang Yushi's ginseng book has not arrived yet, so you can stay here for 2 days. Now that I have made 7 new arrangements, the decree has not yet been issued. I will send this book to Zaijin. When the censor's copy arrives, I will tell the master that it will be handed over to the master's cabinet for approval. The ministry knows. I will send someone here to tell you Shang Shu of the Ministry of War to not cover up his copy. Dad just wants to rest assured and doesn't care about other things. So he took care of the 2 of them and went back to the inn to rest and wait for the news. One day, Grand Master Kai issued a copy of the document, and the imperial edict was approved. When I came to Baoyang Mansion, the doorman secretly copied the resident's newspaper and took it home to see Simon King. Butler Zai, who had been waiting for a day, wrote a reply, paid 5 taels for travel expenses, and took the road back to King County, Shandong Province with Jia Shu. When I got home, Simon King was worried at home, so Jia Tixing came to ask for letters again and again every day. When I heard that Lai Bo and his 2 men had arrived, I called him to the back and asked him what he was bringing. Lai Bo told Simon Qingxi the above incident and said, Dad Zai read his book and said, This matter is not urgent, so your father can rest assured. Seeing that today's inspection tour is also full, we will order a new inspection. It's been pressed. Besides, his ginseng book hasn't arrived yet. When he gets it, I'll tell the master that it doesn't matter how heavy the ginseng in his book is, only the department knows. I'll take the note here and tell the rest of the War Department. Minister, I just filed a case against him and didn't overturn it. It doesn't matter if he has the ability to change the world. After hearing this, Simon King felt relieved, because he asked, Why is he not here yet? Lai Bao said, As soon as we left, we traveled day and night. We arrived in the middle of the capital in only 5 days, so we know that he was in front of him. Every time I come back, I see him on the road. A bunch of bell-ringing post horses, carrying yellow burdens, 2 pheasant tails, and 2 fang flags on their backs, might have arrived just because they were patrolling the Yamen to deliver the seal. Simon King said, It was too late to get him. That's it. I'm just afraid I'll be late. Lai Bao said, Don't worry. It's okay. Not only did I do this, but I also found out 2 good things. Simon King asked, What's the matter? Lai Bao said. The Grand Master has recently stated 7 things, and his decree has been carried out. Now my relative, Mr. Han, the Minister of the Ministry of Household Affairs, has mentioned the following example: to introduce salt seeds in Shaanxi and other 3 countries. Each prefecture, and county set up a charity warehouse to sell grain and rice, and asked the people to go to the warehouse to collect rice, and collect the money from the warehouse. The money from the old warehouse was 7 cents, and the new warehouse was 3 cents. Qiao's father, Gao Yangguan, paid 30,000 yuan for salt, and the Ministry of Revenue sent him. Now Kai Zhuangyuan ordered to more Huai patrol salts, and he will leave Beijing soon, and there will be a lot of interest. Simon King listened. Yin asked, "Is this really happening?" Lai Bao said, "Dad doesn't believe it. I copied the newspaper from my residence and put it here." Xiang took it out of the bookcase and looked at it with Simon King, seeing many words on it. I called Chen Jingji to read it to him. When Chen Jingji read it in the middle, as long as he stopped nodding, there were still a few people who didn't recognize the words. Chuan called the book boy to read. The scholar was from a disciple, and he read straight to the end like running water. What are the 7 things playing on it? This book is written by Kai Jing, Duke of Lu State, the Minister of Scholars of Chongzhen University. It is based on Chen's foolish opinions, exhausting his foolish intentions, recruiting talents, achieving practical results, making enough money, convenient for the people, and governing affairs in order to prosper the saint. On the first day, the imperial examinations were dismissed, and all the scholars were awarded tribute by the school. It is said that education has ruined the barbarians, and their customs have declined. This is because true talents are not obtained by recruiting scholars, and education cannot be relied on. Xu said, "Born to be kind to the people. He is a king and a teacher." The Han dynasty promoted filial piety and integrity, and the Tang dynasty established schools. Our country began to formulate the method of paying tribute, and each was biased, so that this generation had no real talents. And how can the people rely on Yan as their pastor? Today, the emperor is looking for talents, and he is trying to govern at midnight. Governance lies in nurturing talents, and there is no better way to nurture talents than in schools. From now on, when recruiting scholars, we should follow the ancient tradition and pay tribute from the school. The prefectures and counties issued Jiliwei, and everything was dismissed. Those who do well in the examination every year will be sent to know the tribute examination, which is also the same as the ritual ceremony. There are still 8 subjects for recruiting scholars. The 8 elements are filial piety, friendship, harmony, marriage, responsibility, sympathy, loyalty, and harmony. If a scholar has this, he will be exempted from the examination and will be able to make up for his studies. On the second day, let's talk about financial affairs. In the early days of the founding of the country, a secretariat was set up to discuss finance and interests. It is said that people are free from extravagant expenses and cherish the people's wealth. Since Your Majesty came to the throne, you have not treasured distant things. You have not worked hard to please the people, and you have practiced frugality to serve yourself. There is no custom in the world that cannot be returned, and there is no wealth that cannot be saved. However, those involved take vulgarity as their heart, take the prohibition as their faith. Do not neglect the beginning, and do not relax the end. They want to promote customs and beauty, and make you to prosperous and prosperous. How can they talk about it? Read it. The third is the method of changing salt banknotes. Stealing salt banknotes is a lesson for the state to provide for border supplies. Today, there is no one who follows the ancestral method of making salt. The imperial edict was sent to Yanzhong, Shaanxi, and Shaanxi to collect grain and grass, to collect old salt banknotes at the pass, and to exchange new salt banknotes in the southeastern Huaihei and Zhejiang provinces. Each folded banknote is worth 3 cents, and old banknotes are worth 7 cents. Today, merchants distribute salt according to the land assigned to produce salt. It's like the tea method, where you go to the official scale for inspection, pay the interest and ask for approval, and sell it in salt places on a limited day. If the limit is exceeded, they will be detained simultaneously. Do not buy new ones and increase sales, as they are all illegal salt. In this way, the national curriculum will increase day by day, and there will be no shortage of peripheral reserves. The fourth is the method of making money. It is said that money and goods are the blood of the country. They are valuable in circulation and cannot be stagnated. If there are adversities and obstacles that prevent people from walking, how can the common people adapt? And how can the national curriculum rely on it? Since the gusai money in the late Jin dynasty, it has become trivial and even mixed with lead and iron in the early kingdom. The border people were trafficked to the captives, so they made weapons, which caused great harm, and there was no access to them. With your majesty's newly minted Chongqing and Dogwen Tongbao, 1 coin is worth 10, so that the common people can use it, and the prices will not be too high. The fifth is to practice the method of making money and purchasing goods. Stealing the law of official purchase is the meaning of relief. In recent years, floods and droughts have persisted, and the people have begun to issue relief edicts for food. Recently, Han Lv, the Minister of Household Affairs, replied to Qin Yi, each prefecture and county within the territory will be established as a society, and the law of making money and purchasing goods will be carried out. Protect it from the party from the inside from the township, and promote the knot. Each township is divided into 3 households, classified as upper, middle, and lower. Those in the upper household pay the grain, those in the middle household receive half of it, and those in the lower household withdraw the amount of grain they receive, which is called tabao. In this way, the method of gathering and dispersing for the convenience of the people can be implemented, and the emperor can be generous and benevolent. The only responsibility is to abide by the order and verify it, and the relationship is extremely delicate. Sixth, he ordered all the prefectures and counties in the world to pay their husbands free of charge. However, since the early invasion of our country has not been resolved, we have ordered all the troops from all over the world to gather in the capital to transport supplies and strengthen the country's power. Today, peace has lasted for a long time, and the people are in peace, and they have jointly issued an edict to all the prefectures and counties. Every year, they pay free money, and each person has 30 guan of money, and sends it to the capital to finance border expenses. The common people get the convenience, but the people's strength is small. The 7th day is to set up a boat station for the people in front of the emperor. Since your majesty came to the throne, you have been treated in a silent manner. The flowers and stones presented are all found in the mountains and forests, discarded by people. However, if the secretary performs the duties wrongly, it will cause disturbance and harm the holy order. Your majesty, in order to save it from flooding, please still provide the imperial premise to lift people and ships. If there is any useful money, please use the internal money and send officials to collect it. The common people will not disturb the state or county. Fuki Holy Judge, according to the order, he said, you are deeply aware of the difficult times, and my heart is full of joy, which shows my loyalty, and I will act accordingly. The ministry knew. After hearing this, Simon King read Butler Jai's letter and found out that the gift was clearly handed over. When Kai Yuan came to court, he ordered to Huai patrol salts. He passed by here soon and was very happy. At the same time, he sent Jia Shu home. Let your father know. At the same time, he rewarded Lai Bo with 5 taels of silver, 2 bottles of wine, and a side of meat, and went back to his room to rest. Exactly, a big tree attracts wind and damages the tree, and a person with a high reputation loses his life. There is poetry to prove it. Gains and losses, prosperity and loss, destiny are all caused by time, month, day and time. If you have ambitions in your chest, you will eventually achieve them. If you don't have money in your pocket, don't talk about your talents.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.